Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, and unity as a whole. Today, I'm interviewing Sky Kismet, a light worker, intuitive, mystic, and gardener. She has a website, skykismet.com, where she provides a variety of services such as spiritual healing, astrological readings, tarot readings, and more. She has studied subjects such as a variety of subjects such as metaphysics, symbology, ascension theory, and theosophy for years. She also loves gardening and nature. She's passionate about healing and helping others to help Mother Earth. Hi, Sky.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing all right, actually.
Wonderful, wonderful.
What about you?
Oh, very well. Very well. Just, another day in the year of our Lord, 2020.
One hell of a year, eh?
It is. It is.
Well, they say you need to go through hell to get to heaven, right?
That's true. We gotta dig deep if we can reach the heights. So absolutely.
So would you say that awakening is a bit like gardening then?
Oh, a bit like gardening. Well, it takes a lot longer than you think.
And there's a lot of
It will. Yeah. I actually, yes, I will relate it to gardening. I will relate it to gardening. You know, one of the things that I like to tell gardening students is that a potato farmer who's been a potato farmer for 20 years has only grown potatoes 20 times, right? So it's not something that you can do repeatedly like dance every day and get better every day. This is a very slow process. And I think that that's one thing about our spiritual journey and emotional healing that people could possibly understand a little bit better, because having some patience with the process is very important. The things that come up, for example, for your dark night of the soul, right? The things that come up during times like that, they will come up repeatedly, unfortunately, until you begin responding in a better way. But you get breaks in between, right? So the potato farmer has the winter to kind of sleep and think about what he wants to do next year. And we go through the same kind of cyclical things. So it is a lot like gardening. Yeah. And to have to, remember to nourish yourself and keep yourself, fertilized and watered, during the process, and try not to turn to, things that, that aren't so good for you, to alleviate.
So, I guess some things are escape mechanisms.
Yeah.
Right? And they might make us feel better temporarily, but really we're not dealing with whatever might be repressed or whatever no longer serves. And we've got to do that to grow, right?
Yeah. Even spiritual avoidance can be considered an escape mechanism in a big way, because if you're consistently focused on feeling the good feelings and denying the negative feelings and kind of staying in that fake it till you make it phase, I think that's, you really do have to move past that and dive deep and feel all the grittiness, in order to come back up.
Do you go out of your way to explore the darkness, or do you, when it comes up, look at that and like, what does it represent? How do you deal with, have you done it? What works?
Well, the beginning was very messy. You don't realize exactly what's going on in the beginning because you're still in it and you're still wondering why this is happening to you. And I like to let it flow. Surrendering completely and really losing control and really letting go of control is a very important part of this process.
Oh yeah, that's what got me out of it. When I had Dark Night of the Soul, like, surrender, that that you don't know, right?
Yeah, you don't know when it's going to be over, and you want it to be over, and at a certain point you realize that it's necessary, right? And in realizing that it's necessary, it sort of alleviates a little bit of that suffering.
Yeah, but I got it
Hmm.
in hindsight. I realized that actually I'd benefited from the whole thing,
Right.
like immensely. I thought at the time it was just, well, it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened, but it was also the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
That's
it's
the
like that for
nature of
everyone,
duality.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting because duality is like everything, there's duality in everything,
Yeah.
but there's unity in everything.
Yeah.
And it seems like a contradiction, but it's not.
No, it's not. And at the end of the day, like I like to look back at it, and if you can zoom out enough to see how ridiculous that actually is.
Reality is funny, right? It
Reality is
really is.
hilarious. It is. It's funny.
I mean,
All of it.
that's why, honestly, I feel like having a good sense of humor really is an awakened thing, right?
So
I think a
important.
truly awakened being would just be really playful and humorous about everything.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that to understand the timing of when you need to be diving deep and when you can kind of just float a little bit and get a break is definitely in the astrological chart. And it's also just in how you're feeling. Things will come up. You'll get a flat on the road while you're driving to work one morning, and you'll get really frustrated, right? And you're there, you are, you're in it, you're in a healing place, and it's just on a 3D perspective that looks like, oh, I just had a really hard morning, and this has nothing to do with anything else. But the further you go on the spiritual journey, the easier it will be to laugh at the flat tire and go, oh, maybe I need to talk to this tow truck driver about something who's about to come help me.
Yeah, that's
I'm
interesting.
just mm-hmm.
What you made me think of is we didn't make me, but what I thought of was this principle of mentalism that essentially mind over matter, we create our own reality, relates to the law of attraction and the mirror effect.
Right,
And in a
right.
5D perspective, some of the 3D things that happen to us are kind of happening because of 5D reasons. We just don't realize it necessarily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also feel like the law of attraction and concepts like that they can be gatekeepers for true spirituality.
Okay.
So
Tell me more.
oftentimes you'll have someone who, for example, and this is one I run into all the time, and I went through this as well. You run into someone who has really deep lack programming, and they aren't making enough money, and they don't understand why they're constantly in this cycle of, I can't get past a certain point in my life, and I feel like a failure. And okay, and then they stumble into, the law of attraction on Oprah, and
Right.
and they say, this is the answer. All I have to do is think about what I want over and over and over again, and torture
Oh,
myself like water torture. And
oh no.
a new car will appear in my driveway, right? But I think that it's an oversimplification of an extraordinarily complicated process,
Yeah, it's something to be
because
aware of, but it's not something to try to use just to get what you want. And if you want it,
yes,
you don't have it, and it's the scarcity mindset, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the way that things flipped on their side for me, and my life made a complete 180, was through the deep emotional spiritual healing that I went through. And suddenly everything just unfolded to me. I don't know if you did watch the YouTube video where I explained that, the end of that process, I think. And maybe we can link it in the description box of
Oh,
this
that's a good point. Yeah.
episode. But but it is a very long process of realizing that you are worth every single thing that you need in your life, including the food in your refrigerator and the roof over your head, that you deserve those things because you are a child of God and you live on this planet. And you're here to go through a sacred process, because right now on the planet, everything is accelerating, and you're here for a reason. And you need these things in your life to live. But if you don't feel worthy enough for those things because of things that happened in your past, or or any of the traumas that you could have gone through as a child, or past life stuff that you've taken with you. You know, there's a lot of people who were nuns and monks in a past life, and so they come in with lack programming because they were taught that having material goods and money was a sin for them.
Right.
And it could be as simple as that.
Maybe. I mean,
yeah, it could be as simple as that, and you're just working that out.
I mean, I felt like I think I subconsciously felt like I deserved to suffer, but I didn't know I felt that way.
Yes.
That was my problem.
Yes. And you start identifying from the place of the person who deserves suffering. And that's it, it's a very, yeah, it's a very interesting process. And when you get that deep inside of yourself, it's like this weird Pandora's box of, wow, what am I going to find in there next?
Yeah, it's almost a little bit intimidating, like, oh God, what next? But I suppose.
Well, one thing that happened to me recently was, I'm not going to say exactly who it was, but a family member who I hadn't talked to in 23 years. And before that, we had had a very tumultuous time while I was a child, contacted me randomly on my birthday.
Oh.
This year, yeah. So that was one thing that popped up for me. Another one was just about a week ago, I had an ex-partner contact me who was very hurtful to me, right? And so what is that showing me? That's showing me that I have to work through some of my forgiveness, because I got extremely angry. I was like, you know.
That they contacted you? Wait, from what they'd done previously, or from how they're acting at the time?
Well, it's like you almost forget this person exists. You think that you're completely over what happened. And you realize once you answer the phone and it's that person, you realize that, oh, okay, I'm not over this.
Yeah. It's kind of, you think, okay, I'm over this, that negativity. I let go of that, moving on. I can just be patient with yourself on your journey of shadow work and all that, because you may well have this sort of darkness that's still there to some extent. Maybe you've dealt with some of it.
Oh, sure.
And suddenly you find yourself snarling at someone or something, or snapping at them. You're like, whoa, where's that from? Or
yeah,
like,
and you realize
there's all sorts of. We have these moments, don't we? Sometimes we just see this really ugly side of ourselves, or not necessarily of ourselves, but of our ego.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when when that powerful emotion comes up, that's that part of your energy system is trying to get that out of your system.
Especially now, right?
Yes, especially now. And I feel I'm one of those people that I've been essentially awake to a lot of the truths that are coming out now, and a lot of the things that people are waking up to right now. They've been a pretty consistent part of my life since I was a child. So I've seen a lot of newly awakened, wonderful people online posting that they almost feel bad for people who have been awake so long, because we must be so frustrated and tired and all this stuff. And I feel bad for all of you. I feel bad for the people. Well, and I'm not saying you yourself, but anyone who's newly waking up in the last 5 years, because it is more intense now. We had time to research and to get to know what we can do with our crystals and our herbs and everything else. And we were able to research self-sustainability. We were able to really get ready, right? And I can't imagine what it's like being a person who's just waking up right now in the middle of all this. But I guess that's why we're here. Is to catch them,
I mean, there's someone in my life, a relative, who I'm really worried about. No, actually, no, I wouldn't say that. But I can see that they're in a really tough place.
Yeah.
And I feel like I guess for a lot of us, it's make or break, right?
Yeah.
And it's these things where you look at them, you're like, I can see that you're utterly miserable. But I can also see that they could potentially make a huge breakthrough, like any day. Or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's up to them, ultimately, right?
It is absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It is. And it's up to their, their soul contract. And it's also, when you think about the concepts of, have you looked into the concepts of critical mass theory and things like that, like the 100th monkey theory, things like
I
that?
actually I haven't. No.
Okay. So the concept of critical mass is when there are enough people on the planet that are awake and beginning to enlighten and ascend, so that those people essentially put all of the information and connection and everything that they've learned into the collective consciousness. And it becomes powerful enough in the collective consciousness where all of the rest of the people on the planet just wake up and the new reality is there.
The 100th monkey is if enough monkeys,
Are taught something.
then the rest just go along
The
with it.
rest just know it. They just know it
Oh,
somehow.
yeah, it's a there's a field, a human field,
Yes.
and we have access to. I mean, there's the collective unconscious was something Carl Jung talked about, but I'm
Right.
increasingly I sense this idea that there is a conscious collective conscious as well.
Right. There have been, for example, there have been inventions that were invented within a year of each other in several places on the earth, like the thermometer is an example of one.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, there's something going on.
Yeah.
It's almost like even though we were in 3D, there were 5D things going on that we didn't know that were affecting us. Like,
Like the as above, so below kind of
yeah, I
expression.
guess, but like just because we're not awakened to the frequency of like 5D dynamics, it doesn't mean that 5D dynamics don't apply to us in some sense.
Well, when we think about 5D to through 4D and down to 3D, right? We have our higher selves, right? Our higher selves are connected to us intrinsically.
And
And so
they're way up there in terms of
well,
a
they're up
dimension,
there
right?
or out here, however you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
think
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's just a matter of that work that you do that we were talking about before, the emotional healing through spiritual practice that I like to talk about, that I like to get my clients to do, will open up your system to anchor more of that fifth dimensional energy from your higher self onto the third dimensional planet. At least this is what I've come to understand, right? And so if you let the consciousness of your higher self, and if you surrender, then you will be acting from a 5D consciousness in a 3D world. And that's what I like to start getting people to do. Because if you're making decisions based on fifth dimensional, and when we talk about 3D and 5D, let's not get hung up on, I don't like getting hung up on those words, but if you're making the higher choices while you're here in the lower realm, I think that that's what's going to have the most profound effect on the planet.
Right. So it's about the choices more than the superficial effects.
Yeah.
And the real effects are on a level. If mentalism is true,
Right.
the mind, or at least, yeah, if that determines more of it, then yeah, you're right. I mean, Carla Rueckert in the Law of One. The book is Living the Law of One, 101, The Choice. She's the channeler from the Law of One, right? So what and the raw material. So
the raw material, yeah.
Yeah, so what she said is that in the book is that, well, we're used to like this 3D chess, no, 2D chess game, basically, right? That represents our normal 3D reality in a sense, that we use the regular cause and effect. But once we become once we become awakened, let's say, we're players in this 5D game.
Right.
We're at this higher dimensional game. And the choices are about how you serve others. They're not about how you gain an advantage in terms of material possession or how your ego feels,
Yeah.
pride or whatever. And it's a complete game. You can look like you're losing or actually be winning. And in fact,
Yeah.
the universe might reward you. Just
And it does, trust me. It does. It's also important to remember when you're in this process, a lot of people sometimes they will be awakened and they realize that they are responsible, right, for anchoring this fifth dimensional consciousness and energy, and that we're lifting the planet up together, and they don't remember that they're also human.
what do we do when we slip, right? Because we just tempt
right.
to beat ourselves up over it.
You realize that a slip isn't a slip. A slip is just, it's just, you're just being a human being. And that's, you came down here to be a human being living a 3D experience.
There's something special about that. It's not a problem that we're human. In fact, it's wonderful. Some people say, oh, we live in a reptilian prison planet or something. No, I don't buy that. Like, I understand they've got a certain role and things. Actually, it's not really, they've got negative idea of what it's like to be here. They feel trapped. Like,
yes,
souls queue up to be here.
Yes, like, yes, we did.
It's an amazing challenge to be here. It's like,
it was a long line.
Yeah, okay. And you queued up all this time, and then you're here and like, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, it's so terrible here. Like, really? Okay.
Right, would it be any fun if we didn't have conflict?
Yeah, challenge. We need a
challenge.
How
boring would it be? We would be so bored. Oh my gosh. That's why we came here. We're bored. We're bored anywhere else. That's why we wanted to do this experiment in duality, is because it got boring up there.
I suppose this is a bit like mass mass role play RPGs, right? Or rather, it's the other way around. They are like reality.
Yeah.
In the sense that, you know, you want a challenge, you go into this. It's like well, I don't know if people know, it is a Kai anime, right? It's like that, where someone dies and they reincarnate.
I'm into both anime and RPGs, so you can go ahead with those analogies. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know about everyone else, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you could look at it in a really negative way, right? You could say, but it's as much a kindergarten as it's a prison, or it's as much you could look at it as a mental asylum, or you could look at it as just a game.
Some people look at it as a school. Some people look at it as a prison. What I like to tell people that get a little bit attached to what the negative connotations of some of the things that are happening on the planet are right now, right? And to try to bring us back to a place of wholeness and as like a really objective viewpoint on what's going on, is to remind them that it doesn't matter what they're looking at, because it's all the same. It's like, it's just the same person wearing different masks all over the place.
I guess, I mean, I understand that intellectually, but sometimes I understand we're all one, but it's not as simple as that, because there's a reason why everything was broken up. There's a reason why there are distortions. There's a reason why it's all split up into many different souls.
Yes.
And I don't really feel like we're not at the point where we're about to join up, become one with the original source, right?
Because we're not there.
Because we're not right at the top of sixth density or whatever, right?
Correct.
We're not. And so we could take that it's, so in a sense, yes, we're all one. We're all just different faces, but at the same time, obviously, like, we don't need to rush. We've got plenty of time.
We do.
Yeah.
And seeing as this was an experiment in duality, I think we're doing a really good job at our experiment, right? Really? There has to be the bad guy. There has to be the villain twirling their mustache, right? Because otherwise the fire wouldn't be under our butts to make this a better world, you know? And I think that that's really where, you know, I believe in angels. I believe in demons. I believe that there are negative influences on the planet. I believe there are positive influences on the planet. I think
what about aliens? How do they fit into this? Because you just think aliens could be angels or demons or aligned with.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I've watched a lot of like military whistleblower testimony about not only extraterrestrials but also interdimensionals. You know,
basically, it sounds to me that are they just at a level where they don't have physical bodies anymore? and
I'm
the
not really
light
sure. I
and
haven't like,
dark beings, essentially.
yeah, yeah, I haven't really pinpointed that. It's not something that I can really speak to,
Ah, okay.
you
What
know?
my perspective on it, what I would draw on to understand it, I guess, is that the densities, right?
Right.
So the idea is that we're third density, where the
Yeah,
density of choice, we choose we serve others or serve ourselves. The next
right.
density up is about love, and I think the choice is that, and I think so. It's whether you serve others or whether you serve yourself, and it kind of. But then the next one is about wisdom, and then wait, what was I saying? Um, I lost track of what I was saying.
That's all right.
The perspective about it, about these different densities and why. So essentially, so at fourth density, there's kind of crystalline bodies, right? That's the
Well,
idea.
I don't really feel that our bodies are going to be changing anytime soon. And I do feel that we are in fourth density now and that we're moving through it.
Right. But certainly when you get to fifth, you don't have a physical body anymore. That's the idea. And when you get to,
That is the idea. That is the idea. But what will that look like?
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, none of us do. Right.
But
So
that might be a reference point at least for interdimensional beings, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's something beyond the whole density system that we
yeah,
don't know about.
I'm not one to get attached to how our physical bodies will be changing as we go through the ascension process. I think that our physical bodies being dense or not dense will not look so different. We'll still be able to, look at each other. There's still going to be perception of um, planet, other person, animal, tree, lamp, I think personally. But
I've had this amusing thought that like, what if my gout that I've developed recently is like it's me becoming more crystalline?
it could be. It could be.
No,
A
I
lot of
don't think so.
people, yeah, a lot of people pin what could be very serious physical ailments on ascension symptoms.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I sympathize, but it just seems a bit rude to really point it out that
no, I don't point it out, but and there's enough people that are barking down their throats when people post stuff like that. Like, you should probably go to a doctor. That seems like it's diabetes, but there have been ascension symptoms that I've had on certain days where there have been intense energies or intense astrological aspects. But you can tell the difference between an ascension symptom and something that is something you need to see the doctor for in its consistency, I think. If I get suddenly lightheaded in the middle of the day for no reason, and it passes very, very soon, I'll often look at the Schumann resonance or what kind of astrological aspects are happening that day. And it'll be like, oh, duh, no wonder that just happened to me because look at that spike, right?
right.
But yeah, we do have to, and oftentimes I think spiritual people are very connected to the higher chakras and they're scared of everything going on in the lower chakras, and that gives us a disconnection to our physical bodies, and we get scared to go to the doctor also. So we have to be very careful that we're not using ascension symptoms as an excuse to be in avoidance about something that might be a little scary.
Okay, so yeah, that's a valid point. As for astrology, which you seem to know a fair bit about.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in November.
Yes.
December's coming along. What can you tell us about astrologically about November and December and how it fits into the acceleration of awakening that's happening?
All right. I would have to look at the chart for the next couple of months because I've been a little bit out of touch. But what I could do is I can talk about, and I can pull that up as I'm talking. So let me just do that. So, but what I do want to touch on, if we are going to go into astrology, I do want to talk about what we've been looking at since about 2008, because it has been relatively significant. So days before Pluto was they announced that Pluto was no longer a planet. Pluto went into the sign of Capricorn. This was in 2007 or 2008.
Oh, that's an issue. What does that mean?
So Pluto is a lot of things. He's a generational planet, moves very slowly through each sign. So for example, Generation X, they all have Pluto in Libra. The baby boomers all have Pluto in Leo. The millennials, a lot of them have Pluto in Scorpio.
Okay, so
and then it just...
I'm curious about the generational thing. So where Pluto is, what does that affect in terms of a generation?
Well, it depends on where it is in the chart.
So tell us where it was. No, we could start the generation before boomers. The sun, anyway.
Well, the generation before the boomers would have been Pluto in Cancer.
What does that do?
And the Pluto in Cancers, when you think about what they did, they were parents during the 1950s, and they were the ones, and you know, Pluto in Cancer is the sign of happy home, of having a house with 2.5 kids and a car in the driveway. And
of course, that's so 1950s.
Yeah, it is very 1950s, Pluto in Cancer.
All right, so
that was the embodiment of Pluto in Cancer. And what we're looking at right now is Pluto in Capricorn.
Oh, could we do it slightly chronologically? Can we go to boomers next?
Okay, so boomers have their Pluto in Leo. And so oftentimes the Pluto and Leo generation, what they learned from the Pluto, and it's interesting that we're talking about this because I will be doing a monthly tarot card pull with a pile for each of the Pluto generations. And so what the baby boomers or the Pluto and Leos took from their parents, the Plutos and Cancers, was how things should be. This is how it should be, right? So especially people that I'm related to, I know that are boomers, they wish we could go back to the 1950s because that's how they felt. That's where they felt safe and secure, and everything was good.
Why were some of the boomers, they took what they grew up with and were like, okay, I like this, but others were like,
they totally rebel
against it. Is it a Leo thing?
It's absolutely a Leo thing. Rebellion comes in many forms and comes from many different aspects in a chart. So I don't want to just assign that to being a Leo thing. But one thing that a Leo thing is, and one of the things that everyone generally notices about the baby boomer generation, is that they are very prideful in what they want. They want what they want. They relatively generally refuse to understand what other people's desires and wants are because they don't understand them, and they get a little, fried from that.
It doesn't mean that they can't move past that, but that's a tendency.
Our astrological charts are meant to be moved past.
Right.
You are, as you spiritually develop and as you move into what's called your progressed astrological chart, you are meant to move past that.
Okay, so what's the generation next then?
So the generation after the Pluto in Leo are the Pluto in Virgos, and those would have been the first generation of kids that came out of the baby boomers. Okay, so there's two generations of kids that came out of the baby boomers.
Right.
There was the Pluto in Virgos and the Pluto in Libras.
What about? No, carry on.
No, it's fine.
No, the question relates to millennials anyway, so carry
All
on.
right. So the Pluto in Virgos, I actually haven't done too much research on, so I won't speak to that. We would have to look that one up.
Okay, but just we can think about a little bit of.
They would have been in high school or in secondary school in the 80s.
I can kind of see where the independent spirit might have come from a bit, but I'm not sure exactly. And then there's millennials. Interesting, some millennials are the children of Gen Xers, although more of them are the children of boomers, right?
Right. Well, you have Gen Xers, and Gen Xers, I am part of Generation X, and so I am a little bit biased. But Gen Xers have the very interesting responsibility of explaining the boomers to the millennials and explaining the millennials to the boomers. Like, we understand both sides.
Right.
And that's a very Libran tendency, is to understand both sides. You know, it's the balance.
Balance.
Scales.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and right now we kind of have the wheel. And as the boomers release their absolute tight grip on that wheel, very begrudgingly, we are slowly taking control of the, you know, mothership Earth a little bit more.
Hopefully a bit more balance will be coming in then.
I think it will.
That's important.
And the interesting thing also about the Pluto and Libra generation is that they have had a really hard go during the Pluto and Capricorn transit that we're going through right now. But we're almost through that, and we're now sort of ready. So it's going to be it's going to be the millennials' turn next when Pluto goes into, yeah.
Millennials have had a difficult time, or an easy time, a bit of both, actually.
A bit of both, yes, a bit of both.
All right, so what would you say about my generation?
I think that at the stage of Generation X and the millennials, you're now getting star-seeded souls that are starting to come into the planet.
I've heard
and so now we have the people who are before Pluto and Libra they're people that are having a really hard time waking up. But because of the harmonic convergence that occurred in 1987, we asked for help as a collective, essentially. And the help started coming in the very end of the Pluto and Virgo generation. Those are what we call the first waivers.
Really? I thought there might have been some before then.
Oh, sure. There's always been ascended souls and star-seeded souls that have come in, but this is like an absolute fire hose.
Loads, right.
Of people coming to the planet to try to help get it back into balance and get it ascended and get it out of this density. Yeah. And so Generation X are kind of like the second waivers, and we had a little bit of a hard time, and we're now with our difficult Pluto transit coming to a close, we're now ready to take a lead a little bit. But then you have the millennials, who are very sensitive souls. You know, they're the indigo kids, and them coming into a reality that is so fragmented is a whole other sort of thing that we need to talk about.
Then there's there's also the whole, I guess, the materialism that's so prevalent.
Yeah.
And what it's like to
that they have no respect for at all. Most of them. You know. So, and it just keeps going from there. You know, I think
star sign then. No, not the where Pluto is. For us.
Yeah.
What is it for millennials?
It's Pluto and Scorpio.
Oh, and so we do have a sting to us, don't we?
You do have a sting to you, and you understand some of the darker things that are happening on the planet. And you understand the purposes of them, whether or not you know that consciously or subconsciously is a whole thing.
So is it maybe a potential more likely to accept delving into the darkness?
Yes.
So that's why we can shock previous generations sometimes. But sometimes you need to delve into the darkness to get to the light beyond it, right? And
yeah, so
and you have a bad thing.
And you all are you Pluto and Scorpio?
Yeah.
I think you are, saying you're 31. Yeah. So you're able to kind of transmute a lot of this gunk that's here. You know, you have the ability to, because you're in touch with it. You're kind of comfortable there. Like, I think that the millennials put out the snarkiest, darkest sense of humor memes on the internet, and I love you guys for it. You know, because I think that there's a certain amount of being able to see this reality for what it really is, and being able to, like we said, have a sense of humor about it, even though we're all going through hell right now. You know, and I think the millennials are holding down that sense of humor in a really good way. I really do.
Unfortunately, not all of us. Some of us, I don't want to generalize, but sometimes ideology can get in the way of humor.
Absolutely.
And that's
And
a
that's,
pity because humor is so important.
yeah, yeah, it is. It really is.
So have you found more information about like the the role of what's going on in the next 2 months? Or since 2000, no wait, 1990, what date did you say?
Well, we can talk about what the influences, that everything that's influencing us right now. We've got Pluto in Capricorn, and that began in 2007. From 2007 to just after 2012, we also had Uranus and Aries. And the Uranus and Pluto oppositions that happened, 7 of them happened. The first one that happened was the earthquake and subsequent tsunami that hit South Asia, like around
Yeah.
Thailand. Or was it, where was it? That was the first.
Yeah, it was around there. Yeah.
The Christmas one, the one that happened
Yeah,
on
it was.
Christmas, on Boxing Day.
Wait,
Yeah,
are you talking
so
about the first one or the second one?
the first time it was, well, the first time that we had this opposition, and a lot of astrologers like to refer to it as like people like matchsticks being lit. And the first one was the tidal wave that hit on Christmas Day, that was down in South Asia. And then another one that happened that same day was the Fukushima incident. Another one that happened was that huge oil spill that happened in the Gulf of Mexico. And so when Pluto is in an earth sign, specifically a cardinal earth sign like Capricorn, the earth is going to start talking back to us. And
Right.
so because that's what Capricorn and Gaia are. Gaia is very in touch with that Capricornian energy because it's the cardinal earth sign, right? So she's going to start taking a lead role in what's happening to us on the planet. So there's that. Another thing that Pluto in Capricorn is doing is it's tearing down all of our old systems. The Pluto in Capricorn line that I like to talk about is that you can't, if you bought an old piece of property and there was an old torn, like falling apart house that was full of mold on it, would you build your new house on top of the old house? Or would you tear the old house down and build a new house, maybe with a better view, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we're in the process, astrologically and in the ascension process, of tearing the old house down. It's very uncomfortable. And that's what Pluto in Capricorn is doing. When you have a hard Pluto aspect in your chart, if Pluto doesn't care if you're comfortable, Pluto doesn't care if you are, if Pluto is the wild horse at the front of a carriage and you're in the carriage and you fall off and you start getting dragged, it doesn't care, but it knows where to bring you, and it knows how to tear your life apart in all the right ways to get you to the place where you need to be for the future. Yeah, it's a very rough planet, but when you're done with your Pluto square, you really start to understand.
Okay, so what's next then?
Next would be, so we had all of those Uranus-Pluto oppositions that happened through 2008 to 2012, like I just described. And then Uranus has now moved into Taurus. And so it's helping us a little bit. It's trining a lot of the Capricorn energy. We also have, just last week, we had the last Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And when Jupiter and Pluto have come together the last couple of times, there's been a surge in corona cases. And this time we had Mars square that. Mars went direct in Aries a couple days prior, and then it directly squared the conjunction of Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn.
What does that do?
And so what that did was that brought the Million MAGA March to DC, and it started all of the, there was a lot of the questioning of the election and stuff like that. A lot of that information is coming out now. That's what affected that.
Okay, so you're saying the beginning of Corona, that came about due to that, and also what's happening now, the election,
well,
all this year.
The beginning of Corona was the Mars, Saturn, and Pluto conjunction that happened in January of last year. And there were a lot. The interesting thing was one of my favorite astrologers, I'm going to give him this, the Leo King, did a projection for 2020. And he said, you guys better be where you want to be when January starts happening.
I wasn't at all.
Because the cement is going to dry.
What? I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like I managed to get to a complete new place within 2020. I don't feel
Well,
like.
I think a lot of us did, but
I don't feel like that's true, because I feel like 2020 is when people get out of that.
It's true, but they had to kind of realize that they were stuck where they didn't want to be. And I think that these lockdowns and the virus and the fear and everything else, I think that a lot of us did feel like the cement dried for a couple months. And it was motivation to then say,
6 months. Like,
what do I really want to do?
To realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
I must
and
have
a lot
just
of
about
us
got out.
Yeah. Yeah. And now we're like, okay, what do we really want to do? Where do we really want to go? Because we don't know where this is going. Everything is up in the air. We're in this weird purgatory place in reality.
But it doesn't mean that people who haven't awakened yet are fucked. Or it doesn't mean that someone is still potentially all right if they're not in the place.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's not what he meant by that. I think what he meant by that, it was situational.
Right.
It was like, if you feel like you need to make changes in your life, like, get those changes made and see what happens, January working into March.
All right. So what's the next aspect do you want to explore here?
Well, later on this month, I believe on the 25th, but I would have to look that up. Neptune's going to go direct. And Neptune is in Pisces, and it has been retrograde in Pisces for quite a long time. And it's going to be like walking through a funhouse mirror. I have a feeling that.
Wait, so it's confusing.
It's going to be very confusing when you think about being in a funhouse and approaching a funhouse mirror, right? The closer you get to the mirror, the more distorted the image of your body gets.
Okay, so people won't be sure about making heads or tails of what's real and what's true.
Yes, and
that's actually a good thing.
Well, and the interesting thing is that when Neptune went into retrograde was when they started using the term in the news media, fake news.
Oh, that's an interesting connection. So
yes,
it's about what people start realizing.
Yes,
that they've been lied to.
Yes. So
really
now
realizing it.
Yes. So Neptune was going backwards that whole time. And so now it's going to turn direct, and we're going to go back over all of that information only in the proper direction. And so it's going to feel a lot like left is right, right is left, up is down, down is up.
The people who've been told, who've been thought to be crazy or out of it, I don't know what they're talking about. Wait a minute, wait. So my conspiracy theorist friend was actually onto something. What?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, there's a lot of people who are starting to ask the questions because they see this and they're like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't make sense. Yeah. But there's some people that they're still very much absorbed in what they're told.
Yes.
Like, everyone knows people that friend or that acquaintance who is they're very much concerned about following all the rules with COVID and everything. And we can't judge them for it. Like, no. There's a reason that they're in that place. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're scared for others. Maybe, they care about their family or whatever it is. There's a reason why they're in that place. Anyway, I mean, it's not going to be easy for them, but it's not easy for those who do understand, seeing all the, I don't know. It's not been easy for any of us, and it's
not been easy for any of us.
we should make sure not to find it satisfying. There's a shadow part of us that might be like, want to enjoy almost like the shock of realizing what's really true that others might go through, and but we should try to. We have potentially can help at a time like this.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we can. Because the people who can see that there are two completely separate and opposed viewpoints, right? There's the people who think that, and I'm trying to stay kind of neutral when I talk about this.
Yeah,
So I'm
it's
going to symbol
important.
spirit, right? There's the people who think that person A is a savior, right? And there's the people who think that person B is the savior.
Or at
But I
least
think
that,
that,
yeah, or at least that person B is the alternative to the devil.
yes, yes.
Right.
There's the people who think that everything that they hear in the news media is completely true. And there's the people who think that you can't trust a single thing coming out of the news media, right?
Right. And that
Mm-hmm.
relates to COVID and politics.
COVID, politics, anything. Absolutely
Yeah, and
anything.
it's increasingly got more divided.
More and more and more divided.
Right. We
Yeah.
need some sort of unity.
Right. And I really do feel like bringing people together in communities is going to be the thing that really brings us together. We need to come together on a more 3D way, and we need to not let COVID get in our way.
3D way as well as a 5D.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like,
well, we need to come together in
there's a sort of
3D,
atomization that's occurred. No, you can't just be like, there's a spirits you connect. Yeah, we can do that. That's great. But there's a real tangible aspect in which we can do it as well.
They could be community projects. They could be, but getting to know our neighbors again and really getting it back to where we were during Pluto and Cancer. But with all the wisdom that we've learned from now to then, you know, I think that social media is really good in bringing everyone together and getting a lot of information out and showing that there are so many different perspectives on what's going on in the planet right now.
What we do with it.
But I also think that it's turned people into caricatures of themselves. And people are taking their opinions and saying, this is my set of opinions and this is my personality. But people's personalities are different from their opinions of what's going on and how they feel about things. But we've come and we've taken them and like, we've mushed them together into this caricature of a person that you see on your social.
A persona,
you know?
Fake personas. And
well, it's not all the way on, it's not completely on purpose that it's a fake persona. It's almost like how real can you really get online?
I mean, some might say that's the whole point. That's deliberate. But on the other hand, no, I don't think it is. No, I don't think it is. Because I don't think that the powers that be, well, they're losing their power, but the powers that be planned. I think they might be regretting the internet a bit.
Oh, so much.
So actually, no, I was tempted to say, oh, this is so that they can control us more. And I was like, actually, no, I don't think so.
Well, it's almost like a game of like 5D chess. It's like who really controls the information on the internet now, you know? Like things can be squashed by some of the bigger tech people all they want, but that really sometimes just makes researchers go after that information with more ferocity. And, you know, there's always the Wayback Machine.
Yeah. You know, that's actually a game on like Steam Workshop. There was actually a game called 5D chess with with time travel.
Mm-hmm. There's a certain
it feels like it would be this year that it came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be. I think it came out this year anyway.
There's a certain military insider who also talks about a concept called 5D chess.
Anyway, so astrology and current events, future events.
Yes.
Or present events, because it's all present, right?
Sure. Don't know. It's
so no that was an event in the 25th of November, right? The mirror maze.
Let's look. I'm going to look at that.
Because I'm wondering, we've got this forecast. By the way, we've got about 25 minutes left before I need to So, but I really feel like this astrology stuff is valuable, and if we could forecast a little bit, this is I feel it's good content.
Yeah,
honestly.
I can refer our listeners and yourself to astrologers that are much better at astrology than I am.
Oh, yeah. By all means. Who would you recommend then?
Definitely the Leo King. He's wonderful. the peace dealer. Who else? I'm trying to think of this one other woman. Start with those two. You know, the Leo King's great. He really has laid all of this stuff out. He did a wonderful, like 4-hour long documentary that is on his YouTube channel that talks about our entire age right now and everything that's going to be happening.
The audio is going slightly off.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there's something's different. That's all.
There's a truck that just started running outside. Maybe that's it.
Well, I guess people can. I guess we'll have you sounding like a robot now. That's okay.
Oh no.
No, it's not too bad. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, so I would start with the Leo King. He did a wonderful documentary and I can send you that link if you want. We can put it in the description box below. But essentially what's happening is that we're tearing down the old house and we're going to be building our new house as a collective. And it's going to be scary. And it's going to...
Could you go slightly closer to it?
What'd you say?
Just go slightly closer. So we're tearing down the old house. It's just, I don't know if it might be quieter or something. I don't know what's going on with the audio.
Could I just find my headset quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. I really find this interesting. Honestly, I could interview her again about other stuff because I feel like there's plenty of other things that I could talk to her about. She's quite wide read. Yeah, so I feel like it's key to understand what's going to happen. Also, look at that kitty cat. Wait, you can't see the kitty cat. What am I? Trust me, there's a cute kitty there.
There is. Her name is Kali.
I said, have a look at the cat, and then I was like, wait a sec. They obviously can't see it. I mean, I could, because I'm doing just audio.
How's this?
Oh, yeah, that's better.
Better, good.
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
So, the events leading up to, well, at least what's left of this year. So there's the 25th, the Mirror Maze. What's other?
No, it's the 28th. It's going to go back direct on the 28th. And you know, Neptune is really it can be the planet that protects us from reality when reality is a little too harsh, when it's retro. And so it's going to go direct. And everything's going to kind of come spilling out.
Oh, so we've been protected from the truth.
Well, kind of, and you know, and I know that it's been a little rough this year, and while it's been retrograde, it's been a little rough, you know, with the whole fake news and stuff like that, with not knowing what to believe.
Okay, so what's next?
So next is, now we will understand what to believe when it goes direct. Now I think we'll get a better picture of what the real reality is. The Band-Aid will get pulled off a little bit for some people.
That's good news, even if it's tough news.
Even if it's hard, yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, what's the next?
And then after that, I would have to, like I said, I would have to look at a chart for that. That could maybe be another conversation, so that I can actually look at the charts and do the research, you know, because it's not something that... In that case,
I'd like that to be an episode soon then.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. I would love to do projections for 2021. That would be I mean, great.
Sure, but I'm just wondering about December.
Well, December, I know that this winter solstice that's coming up is going to be very reflective of the energy of December 21st, 2012.
Yes, I've heard about that date.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So but when you think about the energies that we've been dealing with, when you see what's been happening in our reality, it's really going to be a whole lot more of the same for quite a while. I hate to say that.
Depends on which timeline we go on, doesn't it?
It also depends on which timeline we go on. But I think it's important to understand that we will be ending up on the best possible timeline for our evolvement. It's just a matter of how hot does the fire actually have to get to burn our rear ends enough to move it over consciously. You know, sometimes most people, you could be yelling at them that, you know, they're running towards a cliff, and they're running towards a cliff, and the people on the back of the line can say, hey, there's a cliff up there. But some people won't understand that. They won't listen, and they won't understand
they
that
might get angry.
They're gonna find that cliff edge and they won't be able to change until they find the precipice. They really won't. And we're just going to have to give those people the time that they need to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, we can just have faith it'll turn out for the best.
Mm-hmm.
And because faith is not knowing and nevertheless believing, knowing that you don't know, right? That's what I define it. That, as opposed to blind faith, which would be, I know everything, and then when you don't.
Right. I have what's called active faith, you know, where I know enough to navigate, right? And I know enough to know that I don't know everything, and that I will always be learning, and I will always be curious about the world. I think it's so sad when people lose their curiosity and they say, nope, this is it. This is what it is. I'm done. This is what reality is. I am done, you know?
Okay. So what is most characteristic of December, ignoring the solstice? Like, what does it generally represent in terms of where the planets are, and just generally what December means?
Well, the sun goes into Capricorn on the 21st of December. It's the beginning of winter.
Before the 21st, what is there anything? What does it tell us?
That's something I would have to look up. We would have to do another episode on that. It's not something that I'll
tell you what. We could dive deep into that. We could dive deep into really scheduling. Okay, so we've got this much time left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, within this year, not this much time left in a foreboding way.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we'll all celebrate when 2020 is over. We could do like an end of the year wrap up astrology report.
Yeah. I think that'd be interesting. So, there's a lot to talk about here. Right. So you do readings for people.
I do.
And you have the 3 card and the 7 card. So what can you tell us about tarot readings?
Oh, well, as part of my healing process, and we'll link that video below, I do get in touch with my future self, and my future self essentially tells me to use the Thoth tarot cards, or the Thoth tarot cards that Aleister Crowley channeled when he was doing spiritual work. And I began doing readings that way. I also have learned the first thing that I do in a reading for someone, after I talk to them a little while about what they really want out of the reading, is I get into meditation, and I essentially ask my higher self to have a conversation with their higher self and they basically give me a starting point as imagery and emotion. So sometimes everyone gets something different, and it surprises me every time, because it's like, you know, I humbly don't really expect this to happen every time, right? I just go, okay, what's my message for this person? And I have a very good friend of mine who I did a reading for, and she had just come out of some schooling, and she needed to know how she should pursue it as a career. And what I got was a mountain with 2 paths going up, and there was like a tree at the top of the mountain, and one of the paths went straight up to the tree, and the other path went around the mountain like this. And what I was told was to let her know that either way is good, but you're going to have a lot less understanding when you get to the top if you take the shortcut, so you're going to have to work a whole lot harder, you know. Another woman that I got was someone, I felt this heaviness in my chest. And then I saw a woman curled up on a bed, crying her eyes out. And this was a blind reading. This was for a stranger. And it was very difficult to deliver this information to the stranger, you know. And she had like this egg of protection around her. She was in the fetal position. And I felt like she was putting that egg of protection up around herself to stop from getting hurt anymore, you know. And so what I do is I have that, and I write that down in like a journal that I have. And then I pull a card on that vision or feeling or emotion that I get, and I begin the reading there. And I generally will use, I think I have 8 decks that I use. It says 3-card reading and 7-card reading on my website, but honestly, they usually go more than that because I like to get a really broad picture of what's going on. My healings are usually, because of who I am and because of where I've been in my life, my readings generally, you could ask me about your job and my tarot cards will tell you what you need to heal inside of yourself to do that, to do better at your job. So they are absolutely are tailored to my energy and to the way that I generally heal people. But
you have to
they
ask
are
something in particular, or can you ask, what do I need to hear?
Yeah, you can. That's just a general reading, and I can absolutely do that. Yeah, we could do one live at some point if you wanted to do that.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure about doing that live,
Yeah,
but
fine. Yeah, whatever.
right.
Good.
So you do astrological readings for people as well?
I do, yes. Yeah, I do. We dive into the birth chart and we find out what the strengths and weaknesses are, what your special gifts are that works within the grander aspects of your generation. Because I do like to approach astrology from the Pluto perspective. Oftentimes, you know, when people say, well, what's your sign? You know, and for example, I'm a Libra. So that means that the sun was in the sign of Libra when I was born. But you have a lot of planets in between the sun and Pluto, and a lot of other bodies like asteroids and moons and things like that. But by looking from the Pluto perspective and understanding what the big picture is that the individual is wanting to fit into, I find that starting there and going towards the sun instead it's a different way of doing the astrology, and I find that it's very effective.
Right. And with both tarot and astrology, symbolism is very important, right?
Yes, very.
What can you tell us about how symbology fits into all this?
Well, symbology is something that fits into our everyday lives and affects us every day, whether we want it to or not. When it comes to using symbology and applying it to tarot and astrology, if I'm doing an astrological reading and a tarot reading simultaneously, which is something that comes in one of the packages that I have, and I pull a card that is specific to, if I pull a lot of cards that are water, and there is a lot of water in the chart, then it helps me know where to focus, and that's all through symbology, you know. I find that symbology is very interesting, especially when you start studying symbols like the planetary symbols and the astrological symbols are great, and they all mean what they mean. But there's certain symbols throughout history that we've had throughout history, like, for example, the swastika, that used to mean one thing and now means another, and it's been fragmented and bastardized.
I don't know. I noticed something interesting. Mm-hmm. So it's about peace, mm-hmm. but it was reversed. Mm-hmm. World War II was a war, and the Nazis were very warlike. So just like, it's pretty straightforward in a way. So they made it a symbol of war.
It is, yeah. It was so common that it was actually before World War II. It was on Coca-Cola bottles and things like that.
Actually, yeah. This is a little bit of a conspiracy theory idea, but I do wonder, like, from what I hear, the cabal, let's say, or one of their families was involved in setting up Hitler and providing the whole mythos he was working with, and he had a connection with the society. I can't remember what it's called. All society or something. I'm not sure exactly. And there's this idea that the Illuminati or the cabal planned World War I, World War II, and World War III, which I don't think will happen. Okay. But I don't know. That's just my stance on it. But. And then there's this whole plan as to how they want to set things up. And I think
Yeah, that's definitely a whole conversation.
And it's almost like, yeah, it's a whole conversation, yeah, but it's like,
and Project
I imagine like
Paperclip,
it's almost like a dark occult thing where there's a massive amount of symbolism and ritual in World War II itself. And
I believe that there was.
And the Nazis and all of that.
And New Schwabenland and their contact with ETs and Project Paperclip. And yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Honestly, yeah, we could really talk about that next time.
We could really go. That's like a whole other show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw on your website, I saw a picture which had a book about the Gnostic Bible. And
yes,
that made me think,
that.
Are you interested in Gnosticism, and maybe you're interested in Jung, because Carl Jung looked into Gnosticism quite a bit. And
I haven't studied Jung too much, but I have studied Gnosticism. I love Manly P. Hall. Have you ever read The Secrets of All the Ages? That's a wonderful book.
I'm going to write that down.
That gets into that a little bit. Yep, The Secrets of All the Ages. So I haven't studied Jung too much.
What can you tell us about Gnosticism?
I'm familiar with the
connection with the law of one.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so, but also the secrets of the Gnosticism, the secret.
Oh, The Secret Teachings of All the Ages by Manly P. Hall. And the interesting thing about that book was it was written in 1923, and it talks about the location of the Nag Hammadi texts before they were discovered in 1945.
Okay, well, that's interesting, but okay.
Yeah.
So Gnosticism and its connection to the law of one, and also Hermeticism.
Okay.
What do you have to say about that?
Well, what do you want to know about it? There's a lot there.
I suppose there is. So if you could give a basic rundown of Gnosticism, how do you describe it?
Okay, well, Gnosticism is a process of spiritual awakening, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. That's how I would break it down.
And what is that process?
That process is a gnosis is the realization of whatever it is that you are choosing to believe at that time. There can be a gnosis into all kinds of different things. But a gnosis is essentially the process of enlightenment and spiritual awakening.
And that's an eternal journey, right?
That's an eternal journey, yes. Now there's all different types of Gnostics. There were the Essenes. There were the ones in France that I'll have to look the name up.
Cathars?
There were,
Are they Cathars?
Yes, the Cathars, yes. And like the Cathars, for example, they practiced a completely different type of Gnosticism than the Essenes did. So when you talk about, well, what is Gnosticism? Is it really strict Christian doctrine? Or is it a broad stroke of awakening and enlightenment?
Is it pantheism by nature?
Well, pantheism, I think, is essentially just the belief in all different kinds of gods. To be pantheistic would be to have the belief that there are all different kinds of higher beings.
Right.
And I would consider myself.
That's not the same as polytheism, though, is it?
I'm not 100% sure on that one. We would definitely have to start doing some Googling on that one.
Okay, I don't know for sure, but I have this impression that Gnosticism is some form of pantheism, and that pantheism is the idea that there's like the creature is broken down to lots of all the souls, and
right.
that I feel, and there's a sense of oneness or unity that Gnosticism is about, that has something in common with the law of one.
Yes.
And for me, looking at Jung, there was a lot of overlap to me when he was discussing Gnosticism and the themes in it, and alchemy as well.
When you look at the base word for Gnosticism, which is gnosis, and I just looked up the Webster definition of the word, it literally translates to knowledge of spiritual mysteries. So it is. But the law of one material, when you think about it, is essentially part of that knowledge of spiritual mysteries. And most of the knowledge of these spiritual mysteries that they refer to in the law of one, and when they use the word gnosis, all points to essentially the same thing, you know?
Yeah, and
So,
interestingly, you said you like my readings of the Emerald Tablets, right?
I liked hearing how you thought about them. I think I like the way your mind works very much.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I appreciated your insights very much. I was smiling and kind of relating to what you were thinking.
Because I
When I was
wasn't
listening.
sure exactly. I decided I'll just go with this is my perspective, and people can take it or leave it, I guess.
Yeah, I heard you say that in the last one where you said, I'm not sure if you want these analyses or not, but but I do feel that I like the way that your mind works. You're
All
you're
right.
very curious, and it's nice to see.
What star sign do you think I have?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
That's a powerful phrase. You don't know.
It is.
Anyway, about Hermeticism, I find it interesting that it seems to be pointing at the same thing that Gnosticism is pointing at, and the same thing that the Lord One is pointing at.
They all point the same place. Yeah. And actually, in the Secret Teachings of All Ages, if you get a copy of that book, they really do all point. It really lays out a lot of the different types of mysticism, and they all point to essentially what we're going through today.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to take a look at that, and I
It's very
recommend
interesting.
Listener, that you have a look at that too, even though I haven't read it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So, about what advice would you have for someone what advice would you have generally about how we can resolve all this duality and conflict and division in society at the moment, whether it's about COVID or politics, and how we can bridge that divide at this crucial time?
I think that it's very important that we all start getting together in person. I think that it's important that even if it's 6 feet apart with a mask on, because that's how you're comfortable, that we start connecting again.
Does it mean that we need to at least respect how people feel if they are not
have to
comfortable?
all respect how people feel.
If they want to wear a mask, we can't just be like, you're stupid for wearing a mask.
Yes.
You might be frustrated at everything on mask, but if you want to actually engage with them, if you want to actually have conversations with them, like we've got to have some sort of middle ground. Yeah.
When I have my meetings for the farm project that I'm working on, some people are wearing 2 masks and staying far away from the group. And some people aren't wearing masks at all and just being 6 feet apart, just to be polite. And we're all okay with that. And I think that it's really important that whether it's COVID or politics or whatever it is that you feel divided by, that it's important to start to understand that we all have the same basic wants and needs generally.
And maybe ideology. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe ideology plays a part in that, because everyone's, in a sense, all ideologies are actually the same dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're under the illusion that we're fundamentally different, but we're not.
Right, exactly. And I think, there are some fundamental differences in culture, but not in like the basic meat and potatoes of being alive. And the basic meat and potatoes of being alive is being threatened by a lot of things lately. Like food, I don't know how it was in the UK when the lockdowns first happened, but I had to buy in April, I couldn't find any lemons or garlic, and I had to make chicken back soup because they were just selling the spinal cords of the chickens in our local supermarket. I don't know if you've ever seen an American supermarket, but that's not the norm at all here, And I think it really made a lot of people kind of be like, wow, okay, what's really important here? Not everybody. But I think that in order for us to come to a place of healing, we have to accept differences in others. Even if the news media that you're listening to tells you that that person can be assumed to be an idiot or a racist, even if the news media is telling you that, this person is this way because they vote this way, you can't just take these assumptions and run with them.
And plus social media too, right? I mean,
it could be the opposite. Media is such a problem.
These people are idiots for this reason, that reason. Any stance, right? there's always a reason you can find to hate someone, and there's always a reason you can find to love someone.
When you think about it, let's say you're the kind of person who likes to wear a mask, and you're in the supermarket and you see someone not wearing a mask. If you are making assumptions about that person based on the political assumptions on that person, based on the fact that they're not wearing a mask, you really have a lot of thinking to do. And you really have a lot of examination to do.
But
that
that's
person
not to be ashamed though.
No, it's not to be ashamed of. It's just some work that you need to do. It's on your to-do list. You got to do it, because that person could have asthma. I know some people who do these mental gymnastics in their minds to try to confirm their own biases, and they will run into someone without a mask on, immediately assume that they're voting for a certain person. And because they are assuming that they're voting for that certain person, then they assume that the ideology behind that person applies to this individual not wearing a mask in the supermarket. And those are the kinds of thought processes that really need to end, like now.
And it doesn't benefit the people.
No.
Well, there are some vested interests that might benefit for us to think that way. But
it benefits no one.
Yeah.
That person could be a rape survivor and doesn't want anything over their nose.
Yeah.
You don't know. And to make assumptions on someone based on something as simple as like the 30-second interaction that you had with them, either online or at the supermarket, that's something that we're jumping the gun here. We're oversimplifying what a human being really is. We are incredibly complex creatures.
Yeah. And so you might not know them, but you could get to know them, right?
Yeah.
That reminds me of that thing. There's something from Rick and Morty. It was like, you don't know me, but I want to get to know you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Let's get to know each other again. Outside of the context of social media, let's take a step back and watch this crazy play unfold, because we wrote it.
Yeah. And we are just the players.
And we're just, we have a front row seat, and we just gotta see what happens and stay calm.
All right. Well, I think we've reached the end now.
That's great. It was great talking to you, Nick.
Yeah, it was a pleasure too, and I'm sure people enjoy listening. So,
excellent.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. Have a good one.